Hello, today I'm going to be making a little fold-out mini album using some graphic 45 papers. I'd had a look through my stash and come across the Typography collection, which I've had for a long time. And I thought, you know, I've got lots of different papers in that range, wanted to do something nice with them, and this is the project that I came up with. It opens up and it's got little fold-outs that are decorated with pockets and space for tags and journaling. So hopefully today the tutorial will be nice and straightforward. I've got all the measurements for you and there's plenty of opportunity for you to customise this. So let's get on with it and see how it's made. Right, to make the main part of the wallet, the undecorated part, we're going to need a cardstock base. And to do that, I've used 4 pieces of A4 sized card. This A4 in America, letter size card. If you've got 12 by 12 cardstock, you should be able to get this out of 3 pieces. But if you're using just a standard A4, and this is quite a good weight, this is probably around about a 300 GSM. It doesn't have to be quite that heavy because we're going to be decorating it with patterned papers, but obviously anything that you're using for your actual base, you want it to be reasonably sturdy. So as I say, I've got 4 pieces of cardstock. I'm using red because I've picked that out of the colour palette of my papers, but you can use whatever you've got to hand. And we're going to have 4 pieces to this project. So first of all, I'm going to show you the template for the fold-out pockets at the side. And for that, because there's going to be 2 of these, there's 1 on each side, so 1 on the left side, 1 on the right side, so we need to cut 2 templates. You'll need your piece of cardstock to be 9 inches across by 8 inches down. And I've put all the markings on here so that you can see. I'm hoping that it's going to be nice and clear for you. And we're going to take your piece of cardstock and you're going to score it at 4 inches and then at 8 inches. So we've got 2 panels that are 4 inches there and 1 at the side that's 1 inch. And then we're going to turn it round and score at the 2 inch mark. And that'll create a little fold up that we can make pockets. So I'm just going to get my piece of cardstock and score that now. So here we go. I'll put this across here. It's 9 inches across by 8 inches down. And I'm scoring at 4 inches and 8 inches. Then turning it round and scoring at 2 inches. Now, as you can see from my template here, we don't need this little bit. This is a tab for attaching to the back. So I'm just going to take my scissors and cut that excess away. So just cutting up that score line there. And then just taking a little off the top there as well. So that's my first side pocket. Now I'm going to make my other one. And obviously, as one's going on the left and one is going on the right, they're mirror images. Now, anyone with any common sense, you can see they are identical, but you're just going to be folding them. If you were to be using something with a pattern on it, just bear that in mind when you work out which way you're folding it. Because obviously if you cut 2 identical like this and then fold them, one of them would have a pattern on the outside and one on the inside if you were using something that was patterned on one side. This is plain cardstock, so it really doesn't matter. I can cut 2 exactly the same and fold one way and then flip the other one over and fold it the other way. So once again, scoring at 4 inches and 8 inches, turning it round, scoring at 2 inches, and then just cutting away that excess just to make our tab to attach to the back piece. So we'll just set those two pieces aside for the moment. The next piece that we're scoring is the main back panel, and for this I've taken a piece of cardstock that's 6 inches by 9 inches, and it's scored at 6 inches, so we have a 6 by 6 inch square piece, and then another score line just 1/4 of an inch. So as you can just see there, we've got 6 inches, and then it would be 6 1/4 inches. And this is just so that when we fold it, we've got a little bit of depth, because there's going to be some pockets inside. So I'm just going to get my piece of cardstock and do that now. So scoring that at 6 inches there, and on my hoogie board, in order to get the 1/4 inch, I can butt it up against the other edge. If you don't have that measurement, just mark it with a pencil just at the edges and move it to your score line on your scoreboard. And one other thing that I want to do with the back panel and the front panel will be to round these corners here on this flap. So for that, I'm just going to use my corner chomper, all the little bits falling out of it. It just gives it a nice finished edge when it's rounded. And finally, this is going to make the top flap. And this is a piece of cardstock that is 6 inches by 6 inches. So 6 inches across by 6 inches down. And we're going to score it at 4 3/4 inches and 5 inches. Again, we just want that little bit of depth so that we can encase the pockets that are inside. So I've got my piece of cardstock here. I'm scoring it at 5 inches. And 4 3/4 inches. And again, because on this one we've got the tab, I'm just going to trim off the excess. And once again, just round off the corners that will be on the actual flap. So that's my 4 pieces of cardstock which make up the main part of my base. And now we'll start to assemble it and decorate it. Right, we're going to begin by decorating our fold-out pockets. And the first thing I want to do is decorate the inside of the pocket before I fold up this bottom bit and stick it down, just because it makes life a lot easier. And you can use glue or double-sided tape, whatever your preference is, it really doesn't matter. And all I've done is cut some pieces of my graphic 45 paper so that it's 1/4 of an inch smaller than the actual area that I'm sticking it in. So these panels here are 6 inches by 4 inches. So I've cut this at 5 3/4 by 3 3/4, just so it fits inside with a little bit of a border showing just around the edge. So I've cut 2 pieces of patterned paper to go on both of these, and I'm just sticking these down with a bit of glue, just lining them up as best that I can. And now I'm going to stick up, fold up and stick down my little pocket. Now you can do that with glue again, just along the edges, because obviously we need to be able to put something in. I'm just going to use some double-sided tape for this because I don't want to have to hold it down while it's drying. So I want just a little bit of tape on each of the outside edges. and a little bit of tape on either side of that score line in the middle. Just going to peel that backing off. And then fold that up and stick it in place. And then we're able still to, if we've got a tag or something, we can pop that inside on each of those two pockets. One other thing that you may find that you want to do, and I did it because my cardstock's quite thick, obviously this is going to be folded over and then folded over again. On this very outside edge, I have cut, I mean literally 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, just trimmed a very slight amount off so that when it folds over, it's not going to buckle up on that fold. You may not have to do it if your cardstock isn't too thick. Just see, it's such a small amount, you know, just put it on your trimmer and trim a little bit off if you feel that it's going to be bulky and get caught when you fold it up. Just something to bear in mind. So now I've cut 2 pieces of pattern paper to go on the front of my pockets. So as these are 6 inches by 2 inches, 4 inches by 2 inches, this is 3 3/4 inch by 1 3/4 inch. Again, just slightly smaller so that it fits on. And I think just because I can, I'm just going to switch the designs over to the opposite and stick those on like that. It's entirely up to you how you do it. If you want to be clever and match patterns so it looks like an invisible pocket so that this sort of matches down, you can do that. I just like the fact that it's just bright and bold and colourful. And just pop that one on there. And then the only other thing to do on this section is to flip it over, and I'm going to decorate those 2 sides. And for that I've got 2 of the larger panels that I've cut apart from one of my Graphic 45 papers. Again, you could just use one of the general backgrounds. I like these with the words on, so these are going on here. Always a shame with Graphic 45 that they're double-sided, so there's always something nice on the other side that unfortunately gets hidden away on a project like this. But I do like the quotes. I mean, there are plenty of other ranges of papers that do similar things. Kaisercraft have a lot where they'll have papers in the range that have these sort of cut apart panels. These being 6 by 4, you could probably use Project Life cards, things like that. But as I say, even if all you have is a little pad of 6 by 6 papers, you can trim those to fit this and it's going to look beautiful when you've finished. So that's one done. I've got my pieces of card, my paper and my card ready to do the other pocket, so I'll just decorate that off camera and I'll be right back with the next step. Right, the next thing we need to do is attach these side pieces to our back panel. And again, you can use glue or you can use tape. I'm just going to use some glue here. And just want to line up that fold on the edge. Once you're sure it's in the right place, just give it a good press down. And then we'll attach the other one to the other side. We're doing this next so that we can put a piece of pattern paper over here and hide all the joins, and it'll just look neat and tidy on the inside. So again, just lining up that fold with that outer edge. Once we're sure it's right, we're going to stick it down. Now this piece here, this is the top flap, so I'm going to pop that in next, because again we can just disguise all this underneath our patterned paper. And you want to make sure that you're lining up this first score line with the cut edge, not the second one. And again, once you're sure it's in the right place, just press it down. So I've got some more papers cut to size here ready to go. And again, I've just made them 1/4 of an inch smaller than the panel that I'm covering. So this piece here, which this is obviously a 6-inch square, this is just 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. That's what I've cut that to. And I'm just going to glue that in place to cover over where we've attached those tabs. Now this paper is quite sturdy. It's a good quality graphic 45, so it will disguise the fact that we've got these different layers. If the paper that you're using is quite thin, you may want to mat that onto a little bit of cardstock before you stick it down, just so it looks a little neater. It's up to you. If you think that those tabs are going to show through a thin paper, then just bulk it up on another piece of plain cardstock. But I'm quite happy that it's not going to show through. So I've cut that there, and then I've cut, and this is another quote out of one of the pattern papers, and I'm just going to pop that on the middle just for a bit extra decoration. Now when this obviously is all folded up, I want it to have a closure, and the closure I'm going to use is with a little tie, and it's going to be attached with brads. So I'm going to decorate the outside of this panel and this bottom panel, put my brads through before I pop the piece of cardstock on the or paper on the inside, just again so I've hidden that fastening. So the easiest way to do that is I'm just flipping this over, and I've cut my pieces that are going to go on my outside of my top and bottom flap. Again, just cut them a little smaller. So this is going to be 5 3/4 by 4 1/2 inches. This one 5 3/4 by 2 1/2 inches, and I've just rounded the corners to match in with the rounded corners on our tabs. So I'm going to glue those in place. Obviously, because this flap comes down, I'm making sure that my letters on this pattern paper are going to be the right way up. It's always something that you need to bear in mind, which direction papers are going to be facing. Stick that in place, flip it back over again, And for my closure, I'm using some twine. I've just got some black and grey twine here, and I've got myself a couple of like paper washers really. What I've done is I've used a small circle punch, and I've just punched some circles out of a piece of cardstock, and I've glued 3 together for each one just to make it stiffer. Popped a hole in the middle with a brad, and I'm going to put those, one on the top flap, one on the bottom flap, so I've got something to wrap my twine round. So I'll just get my pokey tool and a mat, and I'll mark out where I'm going to put those. Just want to find out where the center point is on my flap there. So thankfully this pattern here, where this line is, that is my center point. So I'm going to make one hole here, and then I think I'm going to put my second hole there. Just move that out of the way. And just pop the brad through the hole. Doesn't need to be too tight. You want a little bit of room because we've got to get the twine wrapped around it. And what we'll do is just tie the twine around the top one, and just trim that end off, so that once it's all folded up, then we can just wrap the twine around like that as our closure. But now those are in place, we can decorate these inner panels, and that will hide just where these brads are, and you won't have the sharp edges showing. And again, I've just cut some of my pattern paper to size, rounded the corners over, just like I did on the outside. I'm just going to pop that in place. Again, if your paper's very thin, you may want to put an extra piece of cardstock to prevent those ends of those brads popping through. But as I say, the Graphic 45 is really good weight paper. It always is good quality, and it's going to hide that fine. I've got no doubt about it. Or you could indeed pop a little bit of washi tape. Just rip a piece of washi tape and stick it over the back of the brad, and then pop your paper over that, just giving it an extra layer of protection if you think those ends might just start to poke through. Again, I've made sure on this print that my letters and numbers are the right way up. And now we just have one more panel to decorate. If I flip that over, and that's the back. So I'll just need to cut one more piece of paper for that, which will be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. I'll be right back in a moment with that. So this is my last piece of paper to go on here. And I think I'll have it that way up. And flip that back round. So here we have the finished little fold out booklet. I've cut the typography word from one of the papers. I just felt I wanted to put something on the front, almost like a book plate on the front. So I just matted that onto a little bit of blue card and put that on my cover. And then when we open up the closure, obviously there is some journaling space here and here, and I've just made some little tags to pop into the pockets, just using again the cut apart papers from the typography range. My tags are made using Sizzix die. I've had a long time. They probably don't do these anymore. There may be something very similar in the range now, but in a different format. But I've just die cut my tags using this die, and then I have a little We Are Memory Keepers eyelet punch that punches out the ring reinforcer for the top. So I could pop a bit of twine or ribbon in those tags if I wanted to. I could have a space for journaling on the back, but I've just made 4 of those to put into my pockets, which then just fold up and fit inside this nice little mini fold out album. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Hope that it was clear and straightforward for you, and I do look forward to seeing if any of you do have a go at making one yourself. Lots of ways to customize this using whatever products you happen to have in your stash. So don't think that you need the exact papers that I've got. You don't. Any pattern papers will do this. You can put photographs and things inside. You can just leave it for journaling. It's entirely up to you what you do. But for now, that's all. So if you enjoyed it, as always, leave me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll be back again soon with some more inspiration. But for now, that's all. So goodbye.